A joint American carrier strike group and coalition warplanes opened a fifth consecutive day of strikes across Iran, and by nightfall, the tally of shaken cities had grown longer than anyone expected. Explosions rolled through Bandar Abbas near the strait, through the port at Chabahar, through Sirik along the coast, and through positions hugging the Iraqi border. Bushehr took a fresh round of bombardment as well. What stopped people cold was a missile landing close enough to a cancer hospital that staff evacuated 121 patients, many of them children, moving them out under emergency conditions to safer ground. Out in the Gulf of Oman, an empty oil tanker was struck too, a target with no cargo aboard but plenty of symbolic weight. Central Command described the run as another completed phase, aimed at Iranian command centers, air defense installations, and missile and drone production sites, the stated goal being to strip away Iran's capacity to threaten shipping lanes. Iran answered with its own claims, saying its forces had downed an American MQ-9 drone over Khuzestan province, and Revolutionary Guard commanders announced they were opening a new phase of operations against American positions across the region. They claimed a strike on Jordan's Al-Azraq airbase using a Khaibar Shekan ballistic missile and a barrage of missiles and drones aimed at bases in Kuwait, with an early warning radar system reportedly knocked out in the process. Iranian statements went further, claiming hits on American troop concentrations, logistics and support hubs, and facilities in both Jordan and Bahrain, along with damage to Fifth Fleet Command infrastructure, fuel depots, and support installations. Kuwaiti authorities pushed back on the scale of it, saying their air defenses intercepted 4 cruise missiles and 21 drones before they could do real damage. Somewhere in the middle of all this stood Pakistan, watching a war it had no direct stake in but couldn't ignore either. Islamabad voiced open concern over the standoff between Washington and Tehran, rejecting any suggestion it had backed away from mediation efforts. Officials there pointed to a memorandum of understanding as the basic framework still on the table, with the Foreign Office spokesperson insisting quiet diplomacy was continuing behind the scenes, that the dispute needed to end at a negotiating table, not on a battlefield, and that calm would eventually return to the Strait of Hormuz. There was a pointed appeal for restraint on both sides, paired with sharp condemnation of the recent strikes on Qatar. Iranian leadership, for its part, signaled willingness to sit down and talk things through, though the tone from Tehran carried an edge. If no settlement emerged, the matter would simply be closed by other means. Former President Trump kept up his familiar mix of praise and menace. He credited Iran for releasing a detained American woman, calling it a welcome gesture, but added that he wasn't fond of setting deadlines. Better, he said, for Tehran to simply correct its own course. Behind closed doors, he was reportedly weighing whether to send American ground troops into Iran, huddling with senior advisors in the Situation Room, with some discussion even touching on seizing a strategic island. According to reporting that circulated widely, no final decision had been made on boots on the ground, and the administration itself looked split. Vice President J.D. Vance broke from hawks pushing for an unbroken campaign, saying flatly that the era of invading countries to engineer regime change was over, that American forces wouldn't substitute themselves for a nation's own decisions about its future. The stated strategic priority, in his telling, was simple: keep Hormuz open, keep oil and gas moving freely, and recognize that anyone opposed to negotiating with Iran didn't actually have a realistic alternative to offer. Meanwhile, Iranian officials aimed pointed criticism at 2 Trump-aligned figures, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, accusing them of standing in the way of a deal and using the talks for personal financial gain, a claim that surfaced through an American news outlet and included an assertion that Iranian negotiators had privately warned Vance as well. The Trump administration flatly denied all of it. Iran, through its state channels, made its own position plain. The strait would stay closed until the memorandum was honored in full, and any passage through those waters would follow rules Tehran itself set. A military spokesperson put it bluntly: the enemy needed to understand that the current pace of war couldn't be sustained indefinitely. A senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader added that no power on Earth could pry Hormuz away from Iranian control, framing it as a strategic vision years in the making. It's the kind of standoff that makes you wonder how close the region has actually come to a wider war, and whether restraint from any single leader is enough to hold a fragile situation together. The sort of question that probably deserves more than a passing thought.